The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus took Peter, John, and James and went up the mountain to pray. While he was praying, his face changed in appearance, and his clothes became dazzling white. And behold, two men were conversing with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his exodus that he was going to accomplish in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions had been overcome by sleep, but becoming fully awake, they saw his glory and the two men standing with him. As they were about to part from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But he did not know what he was saying. While he was still speaking, a cloud came and cast a shadow over them, and they became frightened when they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my chosen Son. Listen to him." After the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. They fell silent and did not at the time tell anyone what they had seen. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today we are invited to walk with Peter and James and John up the mountain to see what we can see. And of course, what we're going to see is something incredible, something magnificent. We're going to see the divine reality made manifest. And this is the promise that Jesus makes to the three of them before the Transfiguration. He says, the Son of Man has to go through this terrible process. He's going to die, but he's going to be raised again. And some of you are going to see that soon. And of course, today they get to see it. So he goes up with Peter and James and John, and there is a revelation. What's the revelation? The divine presence is among us. We just can't see it yet. Today it is made manifest in an incredibly wonderful way. Now they're going up the mountain. The mountain is a very symbolic thing in all of the scriptures because it's the place where there is the trysting place between humanity and divinity. God comes down from heaven, we go up the mountain, and we meet. And we meet. And so the mountain always has a symbolic meaning, and they're going up the mountain. And the first thing Jesus does when he gets to the mountain is he prays. He prays. What does it mean to pray? What it means to pray is to get inside God, or more realistically, more reality, let God get inside us. And of course, the reality is that God is already inside of us. So in a way, when we are praying, we are letting God out. We are giving God permission to work within our lives to reveal what is already inside. And so he's caught in prayer, and in the midst of this prayer, something begins to happen. He becomes radiant. I mean, he's glowing. There's something going on, and Peter and James and John are staring at and looking at this mystery and gazing upon what's going on, and it is incomprehensible. Not only is he glowing from the inside out, but his clothes become as radiant and whiter than any fuller can make them. And of course, that's symbolic of the outer world, that everything that the divine touches becomes magic. It radiates. It's filled with beauty. They are literally out of their minds looking at what they are seeing because they're seeing what's inside. What's deep inside. This man who has been hidden by flesh and blood. When Peter makes his profession of faith, he says, Peter, flesh and blood have not hidden this from you. You think you were looking at the carpenter, but you saw right inside. You saw that I am the Christ. Well, today the Christ is being made manifest. Oh, if we could only see. There's a wonderful story that the Eastern Fathers tell about David, who is near the Ark of the Covenant inside of a tent, and he sees an ant. And he's going to sweep that ant away because he's in God's house. And of course, the ant speaks up. In those days, the ant spoke, and the ant says, "How dare you try to sweep me away? Why, if I were to take off this black robe of mine and reveal to you what is inside, you would be dazzled by the divine magnificence that is inside of me, enough to confound every monotheist in the world." And of course, David was the epitome of the monotheist. "Hear, O Israel, your God is one. There's only one God, yet." And here's the thing. There's only one God, but the manifestation of God is manifold. The manifestation of God is seen throughout the universe. The manifestation of God is in every creature, in every being, in every star, in every clump of dirt, in every flower, and in every human being and child of God. That's the manifestation of God. If we could just see it. Well, today they get to see it. Today they get to see it. Today their eyes are open, and of course they're out of their mind. They want to keep the party going. They think they're in an Irish rake. You know, it's this is wonderful. Let's build a tent. We're just going to have a party. And of course the voice comes down and says, "Listen. This is my son. He's got something to tell you." And of course what he's going to tell them is the process by which they will be invited into this same mystery, the process by which they will also see their own glory, for it's the glory of God. And that's the Paschal process. That means they're going to go through that same cross, that same resurrection. Now, while he's there, he's joined, by two mountain men, Elijah and Moses. Both of these men ran into God in the mountain. One signifies the law, the other signifies the prophets. Well, Moses goes up and he receives the law, and when he's receiving the law, the glow of God is so bright and it illuminates him so powerfully that when he comes down, he's got to put a veil over his face because he's glowing. Elijah is going up the mountain to Mount Horeb because he's trying to hide from Jezebel, who's going to try to kill him, and he's looking for God. And God is not in the thunder, and God is not in the earthquake, and God is not in the storm. God is in this real small whisper. And then God reveals himself, and he covers his face because he cannot look upon the divine. Now, the question for us today is that while this is a wonderful history, is there a revelation of the divine that we can see? We are in the process. Every one of us is in the process. We are in via. God's not done with us yet. We're still works in progress of coming to be who we fully are. And of course, who we fully are is who we were at the moment of our conception. And those are the divine daughters and sons of God, sharing the very stuff of God. But it takes a long time for that to be revealed in us. And the question is, can we see it? Can we see it now? We know that we have our citizenship in heaven, as St. Paul tells us today. We do need to look forward to that. That is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But is there a possibility that we can see the divine presence right now? And of course the answer is, well, yeah. If indeed it's all around us, we can see it. But we need a certain set of eyes. They are the eyes of the soul. They are the eyes of faith. They are the eyes of our spiritual imagination. And we need to learn how to look. It's a contemplative stance. And there's a wonderful little prayer exercise that I would like to teach you this morning that I think is really very helpful in seeing the divine all around us. Because it really is. It's hidden in plain sight. It's hidden in the material world. It's hidden in our children and in our grandchildren. It's hidden, but it's there. And if we have the contemplative eye, we can see it. But you gotta know how to look. You can't stare. Sartre says, when you stare at somebody, you hold them in their sin. The Pharisees stared at the woman who was caught in adultery, and they weren't going to let her go. Jesus, when he came, he gazed upon the daughter of God. And he saw something that the Pharisees could not see. He saw the divine spark in her. He saw that she was looking for love in all the wrong places, and he freed her. Why? He saw. Those are the eyes of the Christ. Those are the contemplative eyes, and we all have them. But they need to be exercised. In my life, the person who had the most beautiful contemplative eyes was my own father, my dad, who was a parishioner in this parish for many, many, many years. You've heard of an Irish setter. Today's the Feast of St. Patrick's. You've heard of an Irish setter. Well, my father was an Italian setter. He would just sit there. And every once in a while, I would catch him looking at me. Just looking. I'm doing, what are you doing, Dad? He says, I'm gazing. I said, what are you gazing at? He says, I'm looking at my creation. I did a pretty good job. He saw all the way through. He saw not just the flesh and blood of his Son. He saw the divine spark that dwells in all of creation. And I think we are called to see that way too. It's a wonderful contemplative exercise. We don't see. We don't look. Actually, we don't gaze. Gaze with a wonderful sense of awe. Of awe. And so I invite you to do just that. One of my favorite things to do when I celebrate Eucharist is a baptism at liturgy. And I've done a couple of them over here at St. Michael's. And after we baptize, we usually do it by immersion, and the baby comes out crying and it's all wet, and we wrap it up, and I hold up that baby and I say, Church of God, behold the face of God. And I dare say there isn't a person in that congregation who cannot see the face of God in this child. If we dare to believe, and we do believe this, that the divinity is there at the moment of conception, and that's why we're having this fight right now with our state, and it's a fight we've got to fight. If we dare to believe that, well, then we've got a potential to see it. And of course, it's really easy to see in a baby. And so I want to encourage you, especially those of you who have children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, to look at them. To do the Joe gaze, my father's gaze. To look at them until you begin to see the aura, the glow. Kindergartner kids glow, preschool kids glow. You know why they glow so much? You know why it's so easy to see God? They just got here. They just came from God. They just arrived. They haven't learned to become cynical and bitter and angry yet. They'll pick that up. By the time they're 15, they've got it down cold. Huh? But not yet. Not yet. You're still looking. You're looking at the face of God. And if you could see it there, then you can begin to see it everywhere. My favorite walking place is through the Lincoln Marsh right here. Not the bike path, but the walking path. And I got my favorite tree. I've even named my tree. My tree's named Jeffrey. Yesterday I went and I sat, and Jeffrey is dormant right now, but Jeffrey's going to come back to life. And it's the very stuff of God that dwells inside that tree. And if I could begin to see it there, if I can see through the eyes of faith, the eyes of the soul, I'm beginning to see that this world is enchanted. This world is sacred. This world and every creature in this world needs to be taken care of with tender, loving care. Why? It's all the footprint of God. It's all the face of God manifested